Good evening, everyone. I am Amanda Benjamin.
I'm Paul Carganilla, and in the flurry of activity before the show, I misplaced my script.
Oh no! Let's do it all over again because I don't know where my theme music went on this. I had it in here.
Including the 27-minute wait. Thank you, everybody, so much for being so patient. I can do the music, and I got
it.
My script up now.
I don't know why it muted itself.
Okay.
So, if you would like, we can start again.
Let's do it.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I am Amanda Benjamin.
I'm Paul Carganilla, and we welcome you to our mystifying show in which we explore mysteries of the unknown.
In this live stream and podcast, we'll tell tales of the paranormal and unsolved while mixing in a little fun and live music as well.
And in tonight, our fourth episode, we will explore the puzzling and cryptic topic of mysterious creatures.
Welcome to the Magical Mystery Hour.
If you're listening to the audio podcast of this episode, we invite you to find this show on our YouTube channel, the Vaudacity Network, where you can view any images or videos we share throughout these stories.
And see our faces as well. And if you're already subscribed to the Vaudacity Network on YouTube, but it's a challenge to find the time to sit down and watch each episode, this live stream will be released as an audio podcast. So be sure to subscribe to the Magical Mystery Hour wherever you consume your podcasts.
Yes, thank you all so much for being here tonight, everybody in the chat who was so patient with us as we work through these issues. When your shows are a month apart, we're still working through figuring out, but that's on us, and we apologize. Thank you.
We were so close. Like, we're ready. It's like 8:05 or 9:05. And we're like, oh.
Try this, try that. Is that working? Nope.
Nope.
But hi, Dari. Dari says, yes, mysterious creatures. Hi, Diana, David, Kathy.
Yeah.
Looks like your parents are talking about chickens.
I know. I was like, chickens?
Those are mysterious. Those can be mysterious.
Cockatrice, right? That's like a chicken monster.
It's mysterious when it shows up in the chat unexpected.
It is.
Steve, Corey, hello, everyone. Christina. And I think I saw Kelsey in here earlier. Good to see. Yep, there she is. Good to see y'all. Happy purgatory between Christmas and New Year's.
I know. What day is it? I don't know.
It's that week, the in-betweens.
Oh, hi, Diana. Diana says hi. Hi.
Hello. All right, so tonight we are we threw the topic out there, mysterious creatures, and I thought it would be easy, and I racked my brain for weeks and weeks and weeks. We even had the extra holiday week. I was like,
oh yeah, the
I've
store's
got an extra week.
Yeah,
it didn't help. I was just, there was so many options immediately. This happens like every time. Like immediately, I'm like, there's so many options. Then when I start to think about it, I'm like, which one? Which one do I want to do? So I've got kind of like a medley going on in my storytelling tonight.
Ooh.
But I think Amanda landed on one pretty quick.
I did. My difficulty was deciding how I was going to tell it. And I was like, oh yeah, I've got this. It's easy. I'm ready. And then like the weeks kept going by and I was like, oh, not ready yet. Not ready yet. But it all came together this week actually very, I think, nicely. I was like, okay, got my footing. And again, doing these things once a month, it can feel like it takes a while to get used to doing it. Like, okay, I need this much time to write it or research and do all that. So I felt like this month I was actually like, okay, I felt okay. Like I got into a good routine this month.
Good.
So that was good.
Routines are good. And feedback is good as well. Corey just told me in the chat that my volume needed to come up. So if that's...
We were talking about that just before the show.
We were saying we need to ask people for help because we don't know how we're going out there. But
yeah, because we hear it on our headphones through our mixers. But what's in your mixer isn't actually what comes out. It's really weird. So that's why people do sound checks on like a different computer or,
crazy.
But yeah.
Technology is crazy.
It is.
when you're doing it all yourself. You're an OBS wizard. I'm floating along.
You'll get there. You'll get there. Even so, but see, like even OBS, I went, okay, right? I checked out all the sound before, and then when I went on it, I was like, mute. What? OBS, sometimes even when you know it, you don't know it.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, it's a mystery. We should do an episode on OBS and the internet and internet live streaming.
It's all mysterious. We just do it. We don't understand.
But circling back to your topic, tell us what you chose.
I chose one that I found very interesting. It was a major motion picture back in 2002. I know. Yes. And it was, that motion picture was based on a novel by a man who's going to end up in my story. And all of that is to say, I decided to do the Mothman.
You know what happened? You told me you were doing the Mothman, and I thought in my brain the Mothman prophecy.
Uh-huh.
And when I thought of that movie, another movie came to mind. That wasn't that movie. I thought of the Butterfly Effect.
Oh, or the other one I also thought of when what is the other one? Oh, the Dragonfly. Some of Dragonfly. What is that one too?
Yeah, that sounds.
That's another one. There's another one because that one came to my mind too. I was like, wait, no, that's the other one.
So when you said Mothman, I was like the Ashton Kutcher movie or whoever was in that.
No,
like, that can't be it.
Nope.
So, but I have no idea anything. And if you know the show, you know that we mix in the music and we try to pick a song inspired by the other person's story, not knowing what the other person's story
actually is
about.
Yeah.
But Amanda gave me some notes about like vague things about the Mothman story. I have no clue about like what it's about.
I was surprised because I was like, how did you not get this?
But I heard something
figured you would
about
know the movie.
I heard something about it was like Batman, but he was a moth and he had wings.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know. So wings leapt to my mind.
Wings.
I chose my song based on wings.
All right.
I know y'all want to hear the wind beneath my wings.
That would have been a good choice. But you didn't pick that one.
When it comes to mystery and mysterious creatures and creatures with wings, what better song choice than Jeffrey Osborne's On the Wings of Love?
Yes. Perfect choice.
My take. It's my brand new, my Christmas guitar. If you weren't watching Amanda's show last night, my new nylon string, and happy to bust it out 2 nights in a row here on the network.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw it over to you. Can't wait to hear it.
Just smile for me, let the day begin. You are the sunshine that lights my heart within. I'm sure that you're an angel up in disguise. Come take my hand and together we will ride. On the wings of love, up and above the clouds, the only way to fly is on the wings of love. On the wings of love, only the two of us together flying high, flying high upon the wings of love. You smile at me and I begin to melt, just like the snow when the ray of sun is felt. I'm crazy about you, baby, can't you see? I'd be delighted if you would come with me. On the wings of love, up and above the clouds, and the only way to fly is on the wings of love. On the wings of love, only the two of us together flying high, flying high upon the wings of love. Yes, you belong to me, I'm yours exclusively. Right now we live and breathe each other, inseparable it seems. We're flowing like the stream, running free, traveling on the wings of love. On the wings of love, up and above the clouds, the only way to fly is on the wings of love. On the wings of love, only the two of us together flying high, flying high upon the wings of love. Nothing says Mothman.
Right?
Jeffrey Osborne's Wings of Love.
Yes. I mean, I couldn't think of a more perfect song.
That's why this show is so fun.
I know. No, I like it because I just, for a lot of things, there's not something that you can be really specific and get the perfect song. But what I think is interesting is then you have to start thinking to yourself, like, maybe this does, work if you see it this way or that, and you start like kind of putting the puzzle pieces together, like, oh, so I think it's cool. It's like a little mystery I get to work out in my mind. I'm like, oh, if you think about this line.
Once you know the story, you could justify.
Yeah, it's fun. All right.
Well, speaking of stories, I can't wait to hear yours.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. It's a really interesting story. So, let me make sure I've got everything up. I'm gonna get some music started, and I'll tell you this story.
Buckle up, get ready for the Mothman, as told by Amanda Benjamin.
It's December 15th, 1967. It's a Friday, payday, and only 10 days until Christmas. It seems as if all 5,000 residents of this rural town of Point Pleasant are out and about enjoying their day. The clock strikes 5 o'clock, and it's truly idyllic. However, a great tragedy is brewing just below the surface. And at its center is a mythical creature that people have been reporting over 100 times in the last month. So, some people reported seeing the 8-foot giant with 12-foot wingspan perched on top of the Silver Bridge during the past 3 days. The I-bar chain suspension bridge connects Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio, and it goes right over the Ohio River. This very night, as people are preparing for the holidays, there's gridlock traffic from one end of the bridge to the other. Charlene Clark Wood, a pregnant woman with twins, sits in her car, making slow progress towards the bridge. She had worked all day in a hair salon and went to Point Pleasant to check on her parents. Now, she is making her journey home. She sits at the red light as she approaches the bridge, finally, it turns green, and the front half of her car is now on the structure. She knows she'll be here for a while, but every inch closer is an inch closer to home. Does she feel a pair of red eyes watching as she waits in traffic? Do the 64 people on the bridge feel an eerie presence with them? Is that a bird flying overhead?
Flying?
We'll see. Well, let's talk a little bit about Point Pleasant, West Virginia. This small community has a rich and long history. Most families have lived in Point Pleasant for many generations, and some even date back to its founding in 1774. The scenery is beautiful, with lush green forests and fertile farmlands due to the two rivers that actually run through the city, the Ohio and the Kanawha. Point Pleasant is also proud to have hosted a now closed National Guard armory in the McClintock Wildlife Management Area, a manufacturing facility for the Navy, and a Naval Reserve Center. So while Point Pleasant is a beautiful place, it also has a dark history with Native Americans. Now, according to Native American beliefs, the point where two bodies of water meet have bad energy and just avoid them at all costs. They're a bad omen. So they never wanted to settle in those lands.
So we want to see what's around the river bend, but not what's near the river intersection.
Exactly. Don't go where they intersect. Yeah. Now, Point Pleasant actually sits right at the confluence of the Ohio and the Kanawha rivers. So the native Shawnee and Mango tribes just completely avoided settling the lands altogether. And this worked out really well for the Europeans who harvested the fertile farmland. However, the tribes soon found the settlers expanding further and further into their territory. The unified tribe's chieftain, named Cornstalk, who I will show you here. Cornstalk didn't want conflict in any way, shape, or form. He did not want to go to battle. He just wanted peace. However, he knew what he had to do. He knew he had to do what was right for his people and all the future generations. And with that, the Battle of Point Pleasant began.
I see Cornstalk's pipe, but I missed his button nose.
Oh, no. Poor Cornstalk.
Oh, yeah. I had so that these Native American tribes are about to do battle right here where the rivers intersect.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like in that whole area, like not at they weren't like, let's attack right at the intersection. But in that, like, basically, around Point Pleasant, within Point Pleasant, because there's a lot of like woods, forest, and all that out there. So in that whole area, actually, in that same oh my gosh, I always want to say it wrong. The McClintock Wildlife Management Area is where that happened.
Got it.
So it was a bloody battle with heavy losses. And that is the area that would later become the McClintock Wildlife Preserve. And it became just littered with unmarked graves, especially of the Native Americans. The Shawnee and the Mingo tribes were being overtaken. Knowing what had to be done, Chief Cornstalk negotiated a treaty to end the war. So there seemed to be peace. They settled. Everything was okay. But just 3 years later, Cornstalk returned to the area specifically to Fort Randolph on a diplomatic visit. When he arrived, he was ambushed by soldiers at the fort. He and his son were kidnapped and killed. Yes. And it was said that with his last breath, Cornstalk cursed the city of Point Pleasant for the next 200 years. Now, some of you who know the Mothman story might have heard this. However, I am going to clear up a misconception here. There is no actual account of this curse. It's a story, and it's kind of a dramatic and neat story to say, oh, this is what happened and this is why this goes wrong or that goes wrong. But in fact, it was written for dramatic effect in an elementary school pageant play.
Oh.
They discovered the text in 2006 in a room in an elementary school where the play had been written. So that actually has officially been debunked. He did not curse the city of Point Pleasant. It was just a way to explain the area's misfortunes.
Disney found that play in 2002 and made it into a movie called Frozen 2.
Yeah, actually. Never thought about that.
Saying.
So they found that. They said it was actually in a room nobody even knew about. So like that script had sat there for, decades. In a room that nobody even knew was there. They just kind of were like, what is this room one day? I don't know if it was sealed off or what, but they found it in 2006 and went, oh, okay. So. Now, even though there was no curse, Point Pleasant was not without its tragedy. And there have been many throughout those years. The Ohio River frequently flooded. People lost their homes in many different natural disasters. And, of course, there is the one we will get to a little later, December 15th, 1967. Now, let's take a look back at the intersection of myth and tragedy in this town's history. In 1914, sightings of the Birdman began to arise. The Birdman is a bird with the head of a man and glowing red eyes. He was said to have a wingspan of over 12 feet and was covered in dark red feathers that glistened in the sunlight, and was most commonly seen by motorists traveling along the Ohio River. Some people believed that the Birdman was a bad omen and that his appearance would foretell impending misfortune for the witness.
You mean people believed that seeing a bird with the head of a man was a bad omen?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't know how they got there, but they did.
Like, it's Friday night to me.
You're like, hey, Birdman, let's party.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Birdman.
Yeah. So this is Lisa back in
big?
1914. Is he what?
Was he big?
Yeah.
Was he the size of a human?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's like half bird, half human. So it's the proportion is a little off. But if you consider that it had a 12-foot wingspan, that's going to be pretty large. Yeah. So
Hey,
Friday night.
so I'm outside Chick-fil-A trying to get us in there earlier, but
Yes.
I don't think it was a bad omen.
So the sightings of the Birdman continued into the 1940s. So from 1914 to 1940, people were just seeing the Birdman. And but as the U.S. entered World War II, sightings slowed down and eventually stopped.
Maybe he got drafted.
Maybe. I don't know. See him in his little uniform.
That would really freak
I
out
mean,
the
like,
enemy.
I was going to say, right? Like, you send him over to Germany, and those German people are going to be like, what? That would, I would use him as a weapon if I had a Birdman.
Absolutely.
All right. So, things remained relatively quiet until the 1960s. The U.S. was deep in the Cold War and the space race with Russia. And as they they were also entering the year 3 of the grueling Vietnam War. General unrest was at an all-time high. So it was very tense times.
Yeah.
November 1st, 1966. National Guardsmen in the McClintock Wildlife Management Area claimed to see a gigantic brown, half-man, half-bird creature perched in a tree with red, glowing eyes in the moonlight. Something like that. So imagine that, those eyes looking down at you from a tree. And these are National Guardsmen. It's not like they're teenagers who are out there and just, making up stories. And there are several of them who all saw it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I found a theme in all of my stories was like they mostly involved like military people and like they got nothing to like. Why are they making up stories?
Right.
They're not.
I know why. Yeah, absolutely. So the guardsmen were unsure how to approach the creature and get it safely out of the area. But soon, it would spread its giant wings, lift straight off the ground, and leave on its own, or straight off the tree. So it would fly straight up, almost like a helicopter, and then fly away. The guardsmen were left stunned and unsure of what they had just seen. At dusk, on November 11th, 1966, in Clendenin, West Virginia, which is about 80 miles southeast of Point Pleasant, each of 5 men digging a grave saw the same terrible sight. A man, about 7 or 8 feet tall, with gigantic bird wings, flew right over their heads.
Okay.
So we got lots of guardsmen, lots of grave diggers. Both saw it in the same basic area, close at the same time.
Yeah.
But little did anybody know, the most famous sighting of all was just less than a week away. Now, before we get to that sighting, you need to have a little more background on this area, because the most active area for Mothman sightings is in a place called the TNT area in the McClintock Wildlife Preserve. This preserve housed the West Virginia Ordnance Works Munitions Manufacturing Facility. That is a mouthful. This was a top secret project and was a World War II area, $44 million facility that spanned 8,000 acres. This picture is actually just one small part. This is called the acid area. I'll show you a little picture of the TNT area as well. So I said it was huge. The employees were picked up daily and driven to the facilities in a vehicle with blacked out windows. So even they didn't know its location. The same day that the Hiroshima bomb was dropped, the facility was closed and employees were either relocated or told that they were no longer required. After this, the area was used as a dumping ground for chemicals and toxic waste for a time. Eventually, the land was given to the state and became the McClintock Wildlife Preserve. This secluded and abandoned area became a popular hangout for the teens of Point Pleasant. So everything was kind of overgrown. You'd have all these bunkers and things that, you could barely find where the doors were. So they just had the grandest time there, right? They could do whatever they want. There's no adult supervision, and there were long straight roads, and they could drag race. It's basically a teen's paradise.
It was the acid spot.
Yeah. Well, this is the TNT area that we talk about. The acid area was the one of the buildings that I showed you, but there are built areas like that all over the place. This is another area, but yeah. So we're in the TNT area here. So on November 15th, 1966, Robert and Linda Scarsbury and their friends Steve and Mary Mallett took Robert's newly acquired 1957 Chevy Bel Air out to show it off and to drag race in the TNT area. As the group passed the abandoned North Power Plant, Steve Mallett saw two huge glowing red eyes in the middle of the road. He quickly pointed them out to the rest of the group. As they got closer, they could see a figure of a man. He seemed to be about 7 feet tall, gray in color, had wings folded back behind him, and his eyes were so big they could hardly make out any features on his face. Linda Scarberry said that you could see the leg muscles bulging even in the dark. The creature stared at them eerily as they came closer and closer to him. Finally, it spread its wings and it awkwardly ran, like a bird would, into the power plant. The group was shaken and rushed out of the area, reluctantly agreeing that they should tell somebody what happened. As they drove back to town, they looked at a billboard and saw the same figure on top of a hill near that billboard on the side of the road. Once again, it spread its massive 12-foot wings and flew straight up into the air. Again, straight up like a helicopter, and they couldn't see it anymore. As they passed the billboard, it flew on top of their car, scratching it along the way. It then proceeded to fly over their car and sometimes on the side, seeming to stare in, but it never actually passed them. Roger took the car up to nearly 100 miles an hour on the straightaway, but still there was no shaking the creature. It kept pace with them just with ease. Linda said, "We don't know what it was. I don't think we've ever been that scared." And Mary Mallett said, "It squeaked, almost like a big mouse." Finally, they reached the edge of Point Pleasant, and the creature broke away from the car and veered off into a field. Now, I always think that's really interesting because if you were making up a story, right, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, it squeaked. It sounded like a big old mouse," right? You'd be like, "It roared," and it was, like, why would you make up the detail? It was so squeaky.
Yeah, it breathed fire.
Yeah.
It was like,
"Hey, I'm the Mothman. How you guys doing?"
well, say hi. Watch how fast I can fly.
I know, right? Like, no way. I don't know.
Cool ride, bro. Cool ride.
Yes. He's just trying to have fun, you guys. Maybe he's a teen too. He wanted to join in and like the drag racing.
I don't know. They're saying in the chat, Chernobog?
What? Where is that? Let's see.
Well,
is it like a Chernobyl thing?
Oh, maybe Chernobat.
Like a bat from Chernobyl, maybe? I don't know. There could be some other reference. I don't know, but I am.
I don't remember what year Chernobyl was.
That was I think in the early 80s, wasn't it?
Okay.
I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that.
Oh, it's from Fantasia, Chernobog.
Oh, Chernobog. There we go. You got it, Dory. I like it too. Christina says, "Squeaked like a bat."
Yeah.
See, that would have been where, that makes sense. Squeak like a big mouse. That makes you feel silly.
Villain from Fantasia. I thought it was the mops.
Oh, it does kind of sound like the Chernobog now that I think about how that creature looked. I get it. Yeah.
So they stole the Mothman and the whole premise for Frozen.
Oh my gosh. Disney.
Come on.
Oh my goodness. So we just finished with the creature broke away from the car when they got toward town. As the group got into the town proper, they stopped at a place called the Dairyland and just composed themselves. Took a minute to breathe and figure out, did that really just happen? Linda said right away that they should go to the sheriff. This is way too much. Just go report what happened. But Steve and Roger thought that nobody would even believe them and suggested that they should go back and see if the creature was still there. However, the four were a little scared to return to the power plant, which I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to go back. So they decided that they would go further into town. And as they were leaving, they stopped the car because they saw a dog on the side of the road. Once again, the winged creature jumped over their car out of nowhere. Jumped over their car and then into the field across the road. Yikes. That was enough to convince them all that they needed to go to the sheriff and give their account of what had happened.
Did they stop because they were going to hit the dog? Or they were
No, it was on the side of the road, and they were, is that dog lost? Is it injured? Is it dead? They just kind of stopped because there's a dog on the side of the road.
So you just had a 100-mile-per-hour race with a flying giant bat, and you're headed home and you stop to try and rescue a dog? That's a little sus.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
They have really good hearts.
So, they decided to go to the sheriff, and the sheriff's deputies separated them. They took their statements one at a time, and they each even made a drawing of the creature. And this is Linda Scarberry's drawing. This is what she said she remembered seeing. Okay. Obviously, they're not artists, but this is her rendition. And each one of the four gave the exact same account, and their sketches were even practically identical. So the next mysterious thing, they looked at his car, and there were huge scratches along the top of Roger's car.
His brand new car?
Mm-hmm. Mothman scratched it up.
That's a pretty rare autograph, though.
Right? That car was probably worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'll bet. Whew. So Deputy Millard Halstead did not believe the story. But he knew this group. He knew that they weren't troublemakers. And he decided to investigate further. He figured something had to have happened. So he drove them all back to the TNT area. And he shined a spotlight over just everywhere, kind of like, right? He had a spotlight, and he was just moving it around, trying to see if anything was there at all. Now, he found no evidence of the creature, but there is a note that there was unusual static disturbances coming from his usually clear radio, and he just couldn't figure out what was going on. Very odd.
Yeah.
Now, the couples in the car said that they saw shadows and a cloud of dust poof up from the adjacent coal yard.
Lighting the fire for the night.
I know, right? Mothman get cold.
Yeah.
After the investigation, Halstead brought the couples back to the station. The Mallets were too scared to go home and chose to stay in the Scarberry's trailer that night. They turned on all of the lights and stayed awake the entire night out of sheer terror. Ugh, I wouldn't sleep either. Yikes. The next day, Sheriff George Johnson held a press conference to discuss the incident to the local press, and they began printing the story, dubbing the creature the Mothman, after the Batman comics and the newly released cartoon that had come out. And thus, the legend was born. Steve Mallet told local reporters, "We understand that people are laughing at us, but we wouldn't make all this up just to make ourselves look like fools." It's true. Why would you,
Yeah. Hey, media, guess what? I'm crazy.
Yeah. No. And you have to know that that everybody's going to come after you, right?
Yeah.
If you come out with this kind of story.
It was before, like, the Kanye days where, like, it makes you cool crazy to be crazy.
No.
This is not cool crazy. When you're in the papers back then saying you saw a giant Mothman.
Yeah. Nope. So that the same day as the press conference, the group decided that they were going to go back to the TNT area in the daylight, and they wanted to investigate a little bit more. When they got there, they found tracks that resembled two horseshoes put together, except they were really smooth. Steve claims that they saw something fly up inside a boiler, and suddenly they heard a door being kicked open. At this, the group rushed home and decided that they were not going to find out what was lurking inside the building. That was a good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
That's a big no.
Nope. Never again. Never setting foot in that area. Never driving down that road.
I wouldn't even go back.
No, I wouldn't have gone back.
First place.
No, I'd have been like, somebody else is going to go back there. It's in the newspaper. It's fine. Somebody else can go get eaten by the Mothman.
True.
Just after this first sighting, another witness, this was on November 16th, another witness, Marcella Bennett, had her own close encounter. She and her infant daughter, Tina, were visiting their friends, Virginia and Ralph Thomas, and this is Marcella Bennett. The Thomases lived near the old munitions dumping site. After the visit, she was returning to the car, and she saw a tall, dark figure of a man with glowing red eyes standing next to the Thomas car. In complete shock, Bennett dropped to the ground with her baby in her arms. She had to actually, she fell to the ground and dropped the baby because she was in so much shock. She scooped the baby back up and ran inside as fast as she possibly could. Yikes. So first of all, you're so terrified as a mother that you let your baby out of your arms. Like, mothers know that that's not something that just happens.
I wonder if she, like, fainted
Yeah, it's very possible.
Came to and then picked the baby up, because I remember there were times when my kids were babies and I was so tired that like I would start to fall asleep and just like immediately make sure my baby was okay.
Right.
Yeah, I bet she fainted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I would.
Absolutely. No, I can't. Nope. Yeah. So once she got inside, they immediately called the police. As they waited, they could see the creature walk up to the porch, peek into the house through the windows, and even pushed against the door. However, by the time the police had arrived, the creature had vanished. For the next several nights, Bennett claims to have seen the creature stalking her own home as well. Whew.
Wow.
Isn't that super creepy? I don't know.
That's because police always take too long to get there.
Yeah, if it's not an absolute emergency, right? I mean, it's also Point Pleasant. Remember, it was like this very rural town in the 60s.
Right, there was like 2 cops.
Yeah, there probably weren't that many of them. And I wonder also if they were like, I don't know, if people were just calling in things because it's a weird time, you know? I don't know. But they did. It doesn't say how long they took, but.
I also might point out that when my kids were babies, I would see weird stuff all the time.
Oh yeah.
Just hallucinating.
Oh god, you're so tired.
Yeah. I never saw a Mothman try to get into my home.
Oh my god, I can't even. I would die. I would have a heart attack. Like it's at the door. No.
Yeah.
So there, I didn't ring the doorbell, thankfully.
Oh
my gosh.
He doesn't know what doorbells are.
Yeah.
He's a moth.
Yikes.
He was looking for the porch light.
Yes. That's probably why, yeah. He's like, there's lights in there. He'd be at your, look at right behind you. He'd be with your ghost light.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So there would be hundreds of sightings after this initial one. Hundreds. Bob Bosworth and his friend Alan were riding their motorcycles through the TNT area and spotted a creature on the roof of the North Plant. They went inside to investigate and said that the Mothman approached them in the dark before flying off. Faye DeWitt-Laporte had a similar incident to the Scarberry and Mallet incident while in the car with her brother. They were chased through the road and the Mothman was keeping pace with them no matter how fast they drove. Some people said that the Mothman would stand outside their home, just looking in, and he appeared to be very sad. Maybe he was trying to communicate something, but he couldn't. Don't know.
Sounds like through all this, he just wanted friends.
I know, right? Like, he doesn't hurt anybody. Like, it seems like he's interacting. Oh, yeah. I mean.
But, like, yeah.
Does he have insurance?
Like attacking.
No, like, he's never hurt anybody. And, yeah, it seems like he wants to be around them. Connie Carpenter was the first person to encounter the Mothman in the daytime. Everybody else was at night. She was driving home from church on November 27th, 1966. As she got closer to the figure, it spread its wings, flew straight up, so there's a pattern here, then landed on her hood and stared into her eyes. She desperately wanted to look away, but she found herself unable to. Oddly, she contracted conjunctivitis following this account.
That's an eye disease, right?
Yeah, that's basically like pink eye.
So from locking eyes with the Mothman, she got
pink eye.
Infected eyes.
Yeah, scary. I know. And Connie didn't want to tell her story to the public, but her niece, Mary Heyer, did. She kept an account of every Mothman sighting and published them in the paper. She would also go on to work with journalist and paranormal investigator John Keel, who would later write the Mothman Prophecies that would become a famous movie in 2002.
Well, now I want to see it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I did. I only vaguely remember it because I saw it probably in 2002, but I did. Yeah. So, and the book is actually really interesting too. There's a lot. there's several encounters in this that I didn't go into because it starts to veer away a little bit. But there's also a lot of UFO sightings at the same time that, you know, he tries to make a connection between the Mothman and UFOs and a couple other interesting things too in the book. They don't make it into the movie, but his book is a lot of that. So, sounds interesting though.
Yeah.
So by December of 1966, people are expecting that the Mothman sightings would slow down with the upcoming holidays. While there were many sightings and articles constantly being published, many people in the town didn't believe the stories and looked forward to the hype dying down. The hope did not come to fruition. December 4th, 1966, 5 Gallipolis pilots, and by the way, Gallipolis is Point Pleasant's sister city across the Silver Bridge, just so you know. So across the river, they have a sister city. These pilots were between flights, and they claimed that they saw an aircraft flying erratically over the airstrip. As they observed it, they realized that it wasn't a plane at all. It was a bird, a giant bird at that. As they watched, they realized, no, that's humanoid. And it had been the famous Mothman. So even pilots, right? Like we've got guardsmen, we've got, right, just your neighbor in town, we've got pilots, we've got gravediggers, everybody, right? And then again,
bird,
hundreds
it's a
of them.
plane, it's the Mothman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should have done Superman.
Oh, yeah. So also in early December, John Keel brought Roger, Mary, Steve, Linda, and Connie back to the TNT area. They walked around for a while recounting what had happened and showed Keel the land and, you know, just kind of gave him a general tour. Suddenly, Connie screamed that she saw the Mothman and collapsed in a fit of hysterics.
Was she holding a baby?
No, thankfully she did not bring her baby back to the TNT area.
That's interesting. Was it daytime? Do you know?
I am not positive about that.
So she's the only one who's like freaking out.
Yeah, in this trip, she was the only one who started saying, I see him. And so it could be that she was just traumatized. I don't remember specifically which, but I know that a few of them were being treated for PTSD afterwards. So could be.
I was gonna say, sounds like either PTSD or she's a method actor.
Yeah. I'd give her PTSD. We'll go for that. Meanwhile, a biologist from West Virginia University tried to calm people's fears about the Mothman, insisting that the creature was actually just a large bird. They most likely, they claimed, it was a large sandhill crane. So this is a sandhill crane. They can be up to 4 feet tall. They have wingspan of 6 feet. And they also have gray and brown bodies. And they actually have large red circles around their eyes.
But do they glow?
I know. That's the thing. I'm like, they don't glow. I don't know.
And
Some
I
of
feel
them,
like
their red goes a little bit further down too. They vary the size of the red, but
I feel like if that bird's looking straight at me, I hardly see any of its eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, if its head is positioned toward me, I feel like it needs to look at you sideways like a fish or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe anything's possible. But I just feel like it's a little bit odd. I don't know. But that's the theory. And this biologist was totally convinced. They said it has to be, I would bet anything, it's a sandhill crane.
Even that, like, so if I'm driving my car down the road at night and that's standing in the middle of the road,
I know.
It looks nothing like the drawing.
Right?
The cops.
And that's the thing, too. There are a lot of people who theorized it was an owl. And I'm like, an owl. Like, even a really big owl, it's not the size of a human. You're not going to be like, that's a human. You're going to be like, that's a really big owl.
Right. Owls. Last time I saw an owl, it wasn't walking around with its wings like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, the owl for sure. I mean, sandhill crane, if there's like one that's gigantic, like it has some giganticism, I don't know. But I know, there's just no way. I don't know.
Radiation from the plant.
Oh.
Sandhill crane, dark and glowy-eyed and 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm. Could be. Yeah, so they did actually find migrating sandhill cranes residing in West Virginia. So it was possibility that they were there. And as this theory came to light, just as you said, people found sandhill cranes in the swamp area around the TNT area. And it was speculated that the birds might have consumed contaminated water from the munitions manufacturing and actually mutated into the Mothman. Oddly, in 1981, they found red water in this area. So let me show you. This is not quite what they found, but red water does happen. What it is contamination from the sulfite washing that they use to purify TNT during the manufacturing process. So these chemicals get into the water and then it turns it red. And so that's what happens when it's contaminated. So there was actually contaminated water in that area.
Is that one of the biblical 7 signs that the end is coming?
Yeah, like, right? The water turns blood red. Oh, maybe it was just chemicals. Yikes. Don't drink it. You'll turn into the Mothman.
The world hasn't ended yet.
I know, we're okay.
Knock on wood. That wasn't the red that Bible was talking about.
No.
Yeah.
Soon, witnesses were approached or left notes by the mysterious Men in Black. You might have heard of these before. Men in Black are men. They wear black suits, black fedoras, and they drive around in a black sedan. Okay. The movie, of course, Men in Black, is based off of this a legend, I guess, because they're not anything official. Some describe them as unsettling, and some even said that they were unearthly. All the witnesses say that the men approached them and claimed to work for some branch of the government. They would talk to them about their account and tell them that they shouldn't tell their story anymore, that they didn't know what they had actually seen, and that their stories were causing hysteria. So they were telling them they just needed to stop. Even Mary Heyer, the niece of witness Connie Carpenter, was approached by the Men in Black, who told her to stop publishing the accounts.
That's cray.
Yep. And the sightings did indeed slow down. Between April and November of 1967, there really weren't many sightings anymore. Many people in Point Pleasant were relieved. They felt like they could finally move on from this. But in November of 1967, just over a year after the first sighting, they began again. And once again, the sightings escalated into a frenzy as report after report came in. Some of them were of the Mothman sitting on top of the Silver Bridge, as if waiting for something. Now, let's return to that fateful day, December 15th, 1967. Traffic is at a standstill on the Silver Bridge. It's jammed with commuters, shoppers, and semis traveling between Virginia and Ohio. Now, this kind of bridge was called an I-bar bridge. So let's look at the bridge first. So this was the Silver Bridge. It was called that because the metal that they used, they covered it and it was silver. So they call it, just like we have the Golden Gate Bridge. This is the Silver Bridge. Now, this bridge had been built in 1928. And this particular bridge had been constructed without redundancies. What that means is if one I-bar link support breaks, if there's redundancies, it doesn't matter because another one can take the weight of that one. The reason that it was constructed this way, the reason it was constructed this way was that, well, first of all, back in 1928, cars were a lot less numerous. There weren't semis driving around all the time, and cars weren't as heavy, right? So they had no concept of possible future conditions. The I-bars were also constructed out of ultra-strong steel. So they decided that instead of having two I-bar supports, like side by side again, so one breaks, the other one takes it, they would just have one thick one, right? They're like, it's fine. It's one really thick one. Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Okay. So that's, again, why there were no redundancies in that. So as all the cars waited on the bridge, it seemed to shudder. Charlene Clark Wood felt the terrible shaking in her car and realized her car was half on the bridge and half off the bridge. Her father was a riverboat captain and told her that sometimes barges actually collided with bridges. So instinctively, she put her car in reverse. Moments after, her front tires rolled off the bridge and onto the ground. One single link, and it's labeled IBAR 330. So let me show you this. It's called IBAR 330, so you can see that over here. Broke. And that portion of the bridge collapsed. Right before her eyes, half of the cars on the bridge fell into the freezing Ohio River. With that one support gone, all of the weight began to rest on another I-bar, and that one collapsed. That sent the other half of the cars into the river. After this, the entire bridge collapsed. This left Charlene's car teetering on the edge, her tires threatening to roll and join the other cars in the Ohio River. The car rocked back and forth until she finally made her escape. In complete shock, she stood on the edge of the bridge and observed the wreckage before her. Of the 67 people who went into the water, only 21 survived the fall. After the bridge collapsed, people didn't seem to want to talk about the Mothman anymore. There were still some sightings, but general interest was just lost. They weren't recorded. Nobody wanted to hear about the Mothman anymore. A few people had said, I saw the Mothman on the bridge. I saw him there just before it happened. People believed that perhaps he was sitting on there waiting. In 1975, John Keel published the book, The Mothman Prophecies. The book discussed the Mothman, UFO sightings, and even the Men in Black as he tried to make sense of the events at Point Pleasant. But still, the Mothman became a distant memory for many in the town who never truly believed in him, and a nightmare for those who had experienced a sighting. That all changed in 2002 when the movie The Mothman Prophecy became a box office hit and shone a bright light on the town of Point Pleasant once more. After this, the town embraced the Mothman and even began having a yearly Mothman festival. Today, there's actually a statue of the Mothman in the center of town. Every bakery has Mothman cookies, and there's even Mothman pizza. Now, while all of that is fun,
that statue looks a lot like Jeffrey Osborne.
It's like super muscly. I mean, I guess it makes sense when you know, Linda Scarberry said he was muscly. I skipped one thing. Let me go back and just show you this because, yeah, this part is interesting. The reason that the bridge collapsed, okay? So you can see these joints. Now, this is the biggest, like, most important part of the bridge, okay? You have these joints. So you see how in the middle you have this one piece, and that's the parallel piece. Then on the sides, you have these, right, loop pieces that run the opposite way. And you put them together and you put a pin through the middle. Does that kind of make sense? Right? It's kind of like a hook and eye, right? You put the pin through and then they all stick together.
Right.
So what happened is there's a little fracture. They said it was about, it was tiny, like less than an inch fracture on IBAR 330, which you can see on this. Okay. And then that caused it to break. So once that broke, all of these pieces started to loosen. And when the bridge started to vibrate, because, right, the support structure is loose. Mm-hmm. So the bridge started to shake, and that actually took the pin out of the center, and that's when the pieces fell out, basically. The whole I-bar support just fell apart, right? Just the main part in the middle, the pin just fell out.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, I can't believe that could happen. They did talk about the bridge hadn't been inspected in a while. Like, it was probably overdue for an inspection, but they did say that the problem is that the piece that broke was on the inside. So you would never even be able to see it. So even if they had inspected that very pin, that very link, they never would have known that there was a crack in there.
Right.
So, yeah. I know. So.
Maybe the Mothman had like extra heat, X-ray heat vision.
Maybe he did. I don't know. They didn't specify. Maybe he was sitting on I-bar 330. Maybe. So, we still have unanswered questions. Like, was the Mothman a harbinger of death? Did he bring tragedy with him as he flew over the TNT area? Or was he trying desperately to warn people about the Silver Bridge, but he couldn't communicate? Is that why he seemed so sad? He was trying to help and just couldn't. I like to think that the Mothman was real, or if he was real, I should say. I like to think that if he was real, that's what was happening, and that maybe he was sitting on the bridge as a warning, and he was trying to show the victims that they weren't alone in their final moments. Whatever the real story of the Mothman is, if he's a creature or an elaborate hoax or some kind of a shared hysterical delusion, we are only left with one other magical mystery.
Amanda, you're such an awesome storyteller.
Thanks.
For Amanda doing all that research and putting that story together.
Such a good story.
Yeah, I'd never heard any of it.
Ooh, so it's all brand new to you.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Wow. Well, do you believe? What do you believe? We'll be doing that after
I know, and I'm always like, I don't know. There's so much. It's also interesting. Like I said, I would like to believe that he was there to try and help. Like, it just, like, that's what I want to believe. I don't think that it is a shared delusion. I know it could absolutely be like a mass hysteria, and that is a perfectly plausible explanation. If you don't want to believe it, all you have to say is, yeah, one person thought they saw something, and then everybody believed, and it happens. Like, we have, like, there's this phenomenon, maybe we'll talk about that sometime, in France a long centuries ago, and, like, people started dancing, and they just didn't stop until they died. Because it was like this mass hysteria. Everybody was dancing, and they wouldn't stop. It's so weird. So, I mean, that mass hysteria thing is very real. It causes a lot. So again, I can't discount that. But obviously, I think that there was something there, for sure. Like, whether it was a bird or whether it was, the Mothman.
Right.
But I mean, doesn't it seem weird that government agents, whoever they were like coming into town and telling people to stop, just stop? Like,
we have a lot of that going on in my stories.
Ooh.
So that was like a perfect segue that you had no idea you were setting up.
Know that. But yeah, so I mean, again, I think that there was absolutely something there for sure. And what I would love to believe is that it was something that was there to help people in that tragic time. That's just what I would love to believe. So.
Yeah. We've talked about this on this show before, like the whole shared experience aspect of it. When there's something that happens, something miraculous that you're looking at, and other people are there seeing it too, that is so much different than just experiencing it yourself. I think. So the story about the four in the car,
and they had the exact same testimony, the same sketches. Nobody broke, nobody. And again, why would you want that for yourself?
Right.
Like, nobody wants
your brand new car, getting the news for this wild story. I mean, yeah, it would have to be something that they planned in advance.
Yeah.
Before they went to talk to the police, but I think there's something to people hearing something and seeing something on the news, and then wanting their name in the paper and saying they saw it too. But I mean, it just seemed like there was, like Steve Boardman says in the chat here, so many sightings.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I don't think back then being Kanye cool wasn't as cool as
right.
the media makes it out to be today.
Yes.
And let me just be clear. I don't think Kanye is cool.
No.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
His mind is gone.
He needs help.
But he says things in front of microphones to be put on the paper.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
to get clicks.
Yeah.
And I don't think they did that back then in Point Pleasant.
No. Like, you wouldn't just say that and be like, yeah, the whole world is going to run. No. Like, nobody paid attention to Point Pleasant before that, you know? I don't know.
I like the idea. Somebody said time traveler in the chat. But
love it.
The idea that this was like somebody's grandma who was setting up their future pizzeria for her grandkids. Like, I got a business idea for you, kid. And I'm really good with a needle and thread. Yeah. I'm going to make this costume. I'm going to make this mania. And in like 30, 40 years, we're going to start up a pizza joint.
Pizza. I know. I saw the Mothman pizza. I was like, yeah, I'd try that. And they did say, I was watching, the documentary about it, and they said that the Mothman Festival is a weekend festival, and it brings them, thousands of people every year, and they make like $2 million off of it, flows in the town. So it's more than they usually make in a year. And then they said so many people don't believe in the Mothman. They said, but that weekend, everybody knows everything about the Mothman, and everybody will talk to you about it. And then the rest of the year, they're like, oh, it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Vaudacity field trip.
I know. There's so many places I want to go. Can't wait, guys. We need travel budget.
Just don't fly Southwest.
Oh, God, no.
Well, we'll find out when that festival is, and we'll set something up.
We'll go to the Mothman Festival.
Let's go. Photo with the statue.
Yes. Oh, my God. If I ever am in West Virginia again, it's happening.
Same.
Yeah.
Same girl.
Yes. Lots of people in the chat want to, too.
All right.
Dari says, good thing we have a Vaudacity travel agent.
We do.
We do.
Are there any cruises that go to West Virginia?
Well, I mean, there's like cruises along the Gulf. Like, so you could go to West Virginia and then down.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Anna. We'll start a chat. And then we'll do like live podcast stories.
Yes.
Perfect.
Do a live show at the festival.
Yes. Amazing.
Well, let's hear it one more time for Amanda Benjamin and her amazing storytelling.
Thank you. Whew. Now I'm like, I can mostly breathe. Got one more thing to get through.
Oh, you have more?
Well, no, because now I still have to do my performance.
That's
so,
right.
like, I can almost breathe.
And of course, at the end, we have a duet for everybody. So stick around. I've got a few stories I want to tell you. But as as this goes, we try and perform songs based on the other person's stories that they have lined up. And I told Amanda that I'm planning on doing some Sasquatch stuff. It ended up being a little bit more than that, but of course Sasquatch stuff is thrown in there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's the main point, the theme throughout. And so hearing, and I told her, like, there's a thread throughout all of my Sasquatch stories is the military and government involvement. And so that's kind of all I told her about what I was planning on doing. Mm-hmm. And what song did that inspire in your heart?
Yes. The first thing I thought of, so I was thinking about Sasquatch, and like I was imagining being, again, in a forest and like hearing the footsteps, or it's dark out, and I was like, what would that be like? And then I thought, oh, bad moon rising. Right.
Perfect.
So many times it's like, oh, that's a bad, it's nighttime, you're in the forest, there's moon, I don't know, it's just a bad moon. So that's what I thought of when I think of the Sasquatch stories.
Oh, and there's the guitar. She'll be playing it live.
Yes, I will. Once I get like this sorted out. My strap is all twisted.
I think I saw. Was there a poll in your show last night? What are we naming your guitar? Something like that.
No. Oh, was there? I don't know. Did I miss that?
I thought I heard something about that or saw.
Were you on when I showed my ukulele?
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, because I did. I named that one right away.
What was the name of your uke?
So my ukulele is called Robin.
Robin.
Yeah.
And what is this one? Who is this one? We know yet?
This is the one that I've always been. So the name, I'll probably just keep the name because it came to mind right away. I've been waiting to see if something else came to mind, but it hasn't. So this guitar is named Laura.
Laura.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just in the car, bring my guitar home, and I was like, I don't know what, like, I'm trying to remember what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking of anything having to do with the guitar other than we were coming home and it was, in the back of the car. But all of a sudden I was just sitting there and like my brain went, Laura.
It sounds like you just knew.
I know. And I was like, what? What is that? What? And yeah, I don't know why. Like I said, it was just like, most of us, this is something else that's really cool. I'm just going to tangent one more time. Yeah. Most people hear their thoughts, right? Like, do you hear your thoughts? Do you hear yourself speaking when you think?
That's a good question.
It's very weird. Most people do, I think. I do. Like, I hear my voice in my head. I'm like, it's a constant narrator, whatever I'm thinking.
Huh. I think if I'm rehearsing something, I do, but I don't think generally throughout the day I do.
But you sometimes do.
Sometimes, yeah.
Some people hear nothing. Like their brain is completely silent. Like some people like see kind of things or like, I don't know. I don't understand how it works. Like it blew my mind when I heard that. I was like, wait, what do you mean? And I laughed because I was talking about it with David and I was like, oh my God, David, I just read this article and some people don't hear their voice. They don't have a narrator. And he's like, I don't hear anything when I think. I was like, you what? What?
Right.
Yeah, it blows my mind because like I said, it's like if you ever watched Scrubs, I don't know if you watch Scrubs, but he thinks and he narrates, as he's standing there, you hear him thinking. And that's what life is like. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So when I say I literally heard my brain go, Laura, I did.
Yeah.
It's weird.
There you go. That's all you need. Sometimes you just know.
I know. It was weird. So yeah. Oh yeah, Diana says, I love Scrubs. Yeah, Melissa. See, me too. Melissa goes, I wish my mind was silent. Me too. But I don't really. Just sometimes.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're excited to hear this. This is Amanda Benjamin with her guitar, Laura, performing Bad Moon on the Rise.
All right. I'm so excited. I love this song. Oh, wait. I got to be on a 1-up. There we are. Okay. Yeah. I love this song. So, here we go. This is Bad Moon Rising. I see a bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and lightning. I see bad times today. Don't you go around tonight, it's bound to change your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. I hear hurricanes are blowing. I know the end is coming soon. I fear rivers overflowing. I hear the voice of rage and ruin. Don't you go around tonight, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. you got your things together. I hope you're quite prepared to die. Looks like we're in for nasty weather. One eye is taken for an eye. Don't you go around tonight, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Don't you go around tonight, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. There's a bad moon on the rise.
Yes, Amanda Benjamin. And Laura.
Thanks. And Laura.
Bad Moon.
Love that song.
Great job.
Thanks.
Yes. And it seems like so many things happen at night, especially with Mothman and with creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to go through some night and some daytime creatures in my little program here. I've got a series of short stories about different mysterious creatures.
And before I forget, serendipity. Because as you recall, as many of you recall, and you guys watch a lot of our different shows, Paul did not know the character of the Heat Miser in a show. We did. And then the next day, he found that shirt, right, in a store. Right. You were just shopping around. So today, David and I went to DSW. We were like, we got some gift cards. Like, let's just go by. We were in the area, so we went by. And you'll never guess what I found. Take a look at these. They are Sasquatch socks.
Sasquatch.
They even have like little, let me see. I don't think you can see it anywhere you are. They have like feet on them. It's perfect. Feet in trees and Sasquatches. Yes! So perfect. I was like, must get them.
Yes. I definitely would too. And
yeah.
I would wear those to work.
Yep. Yeah.
Definitely.
Most
I've got hot sauce socks.
Yes.
Cell got me. I wear Avengers socks to work.
Perfect.
If you buy me wacky socks, I'm wearing them to work.
I love socks. It, like,
you have to get me some Bigfoot ones.
Yes. Go to DSW right now.
Right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody
hold on.
This has been episode 4 of the Magical Mystery Hour. I'm Paul Carganilla.
Bye. I'll just talk about like Sasquatch. I'll be like, so he's got big feet.
So I'm thinking we should have a Bigfoot night.
Yes.
Because on this show, because the more I looked into it, it's amazing the amount of stories, the amount of witnesses who have had experiences.
Can we also take a field trip like to the woods of Oregon? Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of sightings in Oregon, right?
Or anywhere. Yeah, there's a lot in Oregon, but they're like all over the country. It's like on every coast, in the middle, in the Midwest, in the South. And it's just like, I couldn't believe all of these like regions of not just the world, but the country where people have regular experiences and sightings of Sasquatch. Right. It's wild. Yeah. So there's got to be something to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to be something.
That's why I wanted to start my stories tonight with not a Sasquatch, but a different animal altogether, or creature, or mystery creature, if you will. And this is one that if you were watching Amanda on Demanda last night when I teased it, don't give it away. But this is the wild story of the Asian unicorn, or the saola.
Ooh.
So this legend goes back hundreds of years, but it all began when a group of young girls were down. It was in Vietnam, and they were down by a creek getting some water. And one of them said, "Look." And there, drinking water in the creek, was a creature they had never seen before. It looked kind of like a deer, but had really interesting markings on its face, and two almost unicorn-like horns coming out of its head, just not pointing forward, pointing back. And it was having a drink in the river. And I have a artist rendering of what the girls saw.
Ooh.
This is the Asian unicorn, or the saola. And they watched it as it drank from the creek. And then one of them moved or made a noise, and it looked at them and then bolted back into the woods. And they went back to their village, and they were telling everybody, "We saw this animal we've never seen before." It was like a deer, the face markings and the horns, and everyone just kind of chalked it up to kids making up stories or daydreaming.
Are there gazelle in Asia? I don't know.
Not that I know of. I don't know.
Because it kind of reminds me of like a gazelle, but more muscular. I don't know.
Kind of looks like that. And then for years and years and years, people would report being deep in the woods and seeing this creature. But no one could ever prove it. They were never seen anywhere where there were groups of people. It would just be one-on-one encounters, mostly if it was an adult. And everyone just kind of brushed it off as like a Bigfoot kind of a thing. Or a unicorn kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Until 1992.
Ooh.
When someone actually was able to bring one back to the village. Wow. Here is a photo of the saola found in the woods and brought back.
Was the artist rendering after this picture? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, because if not, that was a really good description that they worked off of.
Right. So what's wild about this creature is that it is now officially listed on as like an official world animal, as opposed to like a unicorn, like it was considered before. And the WWF, not the one where guys in underwear throw each other around, but the
Hulk Hogan, was he WWF or was he? I don't know.
World Wildlife Fund.
Yeah.
The one with the panda bear as their logo.
So not Hulk Hogan.
They list it as an official, not Hulk Hogan, no. But it's listed as an official animal, and it's categorized as critically endangered.
Wow.
They say on their website it's often called the Asian unicorn. Little is known about this enigmatic saola in the 2 decades since its discovery. Now it's been 3.
Right.
None exist in captivity, and it is rarely seen. It's critically endangered. Scientists have categorically documented saola in the wild on only 4 occasions in 30 years.
Oh, man.
Twice they brought one in, including the first time, and both times they perished soon after they were kept in
Really?
They were put in captivity.
I wonder if it's because like they were going to die, like so they were slower, more, or they were separated.
Yeah, I wondered that. I wondered if it was just like they didn't know what to feed it, it needed, or if it's just so magical that
like they couldn't be separated from the others or from its home, or
if it's not out in the wild, it just has no will to live and just like Padme decides to go.
Yeah. I also like how they call it the unicorn, but it's like a bicorn.
Right. The Asian unicorn. It's a
I know.
symbol.
But it's there's 2.
Um, the website then continues to go on and say the saola was discovered in May of 1992 during a joint survey carried out by the Ministry of Forestry of Vietnam. The team found a skull with unusually long straight horns in a hunter's home and knew it was something extraordinary. The find proved to be the first large mammal new to science in more than 50 years.
Wow.
And one of the most spectacular zoological discoveries of the 20th century.
That's really cool.
And I had never heard of it until I started doing research for this episode. And this was a photograph taken of one in the wild. One of the 4 occasions in the 30 years since we knew this creature existed.
Wow. It's a really interesting creature.
Right. It's like almost like it wants to be a ram.
Yeah.
Or a deer or a unicorn or a gazelle or it's in that family.
So it's so big though. Like usually gazelle, deer, they're very lean and thin and because they have to be fast.
Right.
But this has some like girth to it. It makes me wonder like what kind of creature is it? Like it doesn't seem like a prey.
Right.
Very interesting.
Probably an herbivore or
yeah.
I can't imagine that beautiful creature eating meat.
No, never.
But yeah, that is my first mysterious, mythical creature.
I love it.
And I wanted to talk about that one first because it made me think of Bigfoot, of Sasquatch, of all of the people who go out into the woods and come back and say they saw something. And still, a lot of skeptics out there are like, no, there's no such thing as Bigfoot. You all are making this up. And it's very possible that Sasquatch, like the saola, just haven't been brought. They're so good at being out in the wild and hiding in the wild that they just haven't been brought into the mainstream.
Yeah, I know. I have an open mind to like almost anything. Again, not anything, but there's so many things that are possible that we just can't fathom it yet, or we just can't find it or whatever it is. So maybe there's only like 5 of them and they travel across the country. What are the odds that you're going to stumble on one if there's 5,
There's got to be, when I was looking for stories to tell, there like it seemed like every state had forests and stories sightings and it's wild.
Even the Yeti in Russia could have been a Bigfoot.
That's right. Dyatlov Pass. The alien Yeti that we saw in the photo.
It was just Bigfoot.
Uncle Rick.
Bigfoot was on vacation, guys. Come on. Just needed to change the scenery.
Yeah. So I had in my pocket a few government cover-up Bigfoot stories, but maybe I'll save those for another time and tell one of the most widely known Bigfoot encounters that occurred in 1997 in Northwest Oregon. Field trip time.
Oregon. Let's go.
This experience was had by a gentleman by the name of Jeff Boiler. Jeff was an ex-Marine. Then when he got back from serving, he, again with the military, he became a police officer when he came back until a friend of his who was the sheriff of this region of Northwest Oregon gave him a call and said, "Hey, are you interested in work? I've got a job for you. Come up and be a deputy with me. And I know you love nature. You love the beauty of nature. We've got a whole lot of that up here. So come on up and I will show you our friend, Mr. Jeff Boiler." This is him. This is years later. So his experience occurred in 97. I think he did this interview about 10 years ago. So
okay.
This is 20 years after it happened or so. And he says he was a lot more in shape and a lot more swole and
It's okay. It's okay. We got it.
But he was interviewed on, this one was a show called Paranormal. Oh my gosh, now it slips my mind and it's not in my notes. But this was his first time going on the air and talking about it. But since then, he has done a lot of interviews.
Okay.
And what strikes people about his interview is how it seems like he's just like the most normal guy and not trying to be talking about flying Mothman scratching up his car. He's just like telling you what happened,
Right.
and in the most genuine way. And if you want to go and find it on YouTube, it's like a 5-minute video of his story from his very first interview. But you could just you just believe the guy, and you can tell it just doesn't seem like he's in it for attention.
Mm-hmm.
So he tells a story about how back in 1997, he had just got done working a whole shift as a deputy for his friend up in Northwest Oregon. And it was just the most beautiful day. The sun was just hitting different, and he decided to go for a hike after his shift. And he decided to go up to this very remote, unmarked region of the Cascade Mountains.
Ooh.
And they're not on the map. And he's going up. He wants to go visit the unmarked grave of one of his friends.
What?
Which I tried to find details on.
Yeah,
that. I want to know that story.
Yeah, what's going on? I'm very intrigued by this detail.
Apparently, one of his stories, or one of his friends, was buried in this really remote region of the Cascade Mountains, and I guess only his loved ones know about it, and his body's up there. And
are you allowed to do that? Is it like, I wonder, you might not be allowed to do that on state land. So I wonder if that's why it's unmarked.
Yeah, the first time I heard the story, I thought he was going up to like an actual cemetery.
Oh, maybe.
But then when I heard him tell it, it sounded like he was just going up to where his friend was buried in the mountains, which made me think of like, I love all the stories about Everest. And
oh my God.
people climbing up there, like they couldn't be brought down,
No,
so their
can't.
bodies were just like left there
and now they're
decayed.
markers.
Right.
It's crazy.
So I thought maybe it was something like that. Thank you, Emily Thatcher. Paranormal Witness.
Oh, what? Emily. Nice.
It was a very famous interview, an episode, and
Okay.
yes, you can go find that after
Definitely
hear
doing that.
my telling of the story tonight and hear the actual person who went through it and his telling of the story. So he goes on this hike, and it takes a while to get up there. He's been hiking for 2 hours, and it's the terrain, like I said, it's unmarked. He's just got his map and his compass and his firearm from working his shift, and he's getting close to where his destination is, and there's a nice, beautiful creek there, and of course it's all fresh water, so he has a nice drink and cleans his face, splashes some water on his face, and as he looks up, he sees a clearing. And I feel like every Bigfoot story has a clearing in it.
Right.
But he decides to try and get his bearings and figure out exactly where the unmarked grave of his friend is. So he walks out into the clearing, and he takes out his map and his compass, and he holds it up to the sun. The way it's one of those compasses where it like unfolds twice, and the way the sun hits it, there's a little window on one flap.
Okay.
And I don't remember the term for the actual compass, but the point is there's like a window in it you have to look through. And as he's looking through this window in his compass on his hand, he sees the head of someone about 20 feet up the hillside in front of him, watching him from behind a tree. And immediately he just thinks it's a person.
Right. That's a natural assumption.
Right. And that strikes him as odd because, as he says in his own words, like there's sometimes he'll go on hikes, and I totally get what he's saying because I go on these kind of hikes with my dad in the high Sierras here in California. But like he said that sometimes he'll go on hikes and he'll just wonder if anyone had ever stood where he's standing before because it's just so remote. But so that flashed through his mind like someone else is up here. I didn't expect that.
Right.
But then as he looks closer, he notices the long dark hair and the dark face and the just black eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just kind of frozen looking at it. Like, I think I would probably be I think I would be in a state of just my brain telling me what I'm seeing and me not understanding what my
like,
brain is telling
that's
me.
not what, no. You know, like, try again, brain.
So he does this thing where he cocks his head, and as soon as he does that, the person or the creature he's looking at does the same thing back at him.
Oh.
And that kind of snaps him out of it, and he's just like, it makes it all real. All of a
right?
sudden.
Yeah, that thing just mirrored me.
And so after it cocks its head, it steps out from behind the tree, and he can tell it's super tall, at least 7 feet, and muscular, bulky, hairy, just totally hirsute. And so his first instinct is just to reach for his firearm,
right,
which is on his belt, and it's kind of hooked. He can't get it out.
No.
And he looks down to actually get it out, and when he looks back up, it's gone.
But he can never look away.
Right. He can be sounds of it. He can hear sounds of it walking the opposite direction.
Did you say how far it was? How far away from him?
I think he said it was like the hillside was about 20 feet away.
Right.
And then it was another 10 or 20 feet up the hillside.
That's still pretty close for,
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
But he hears the sounds of twigs and leaves, and he assumes it's going that way.
Right.
So suddenly visiting his friend's grave is at the bottom of the list, and he just thinks, I want to try and get another view of this thing.
Yeah.
Now that my gun's in my hand. But so he starts to try and track it, and he's following where the direction he just feels like it's going in, and he's listening to sounds, and he thinks he's going in the right way, and before he knows it, he's spent another hour following this thing, and he's not exactly sure where he is, and the sun is starting to go down to the point to where he's afraid if he doesn't turn back right now, he will be stuck on the mountain. The sun will go down. He has no flashlight.
Oh my God.
He has no shelter.
No.
Like, he literally just left work and went up on the mountain.
I have like no sense of direction in like my normal life. I can't even imagine walking into like the woods or a hill or anywhere, and I don't know where I am or exactly how to. Nope, I would be lost instantly.
Yes. So it's exactly when he makes the decision, I need to turn around and head back to the car. He turns around and he takes a few steps, and then he hears like the deafening sound of a tree snapping, not like a branch, but like
the
trunk of a tree snapping and falling to his right. And he stops and he looks. He doesn't see any tree falling movement, but he definitely heard the sound, and it sounded close. And it was on his right, which made him think, I wasn't going in the right direction, so this thing is following me. And so he starts to freak out, but he's trying to keep calm, and he starts to head back down the mountain. And then a few minutes later, he hears the same sound, but from his left. And he's been listening as he's walking to see if he's hearing something following him, and he didn't hear it cross behind him wherever he was walking.
Right.
So it's moving silently and quick.
How does something that big move silently?
Right?
It's huge.
Yep. And so he gets to this point where it's like the two boulders, and then there's a very thin part to go in between them down the mountain. And as he's like in the crease, he hears a third tree snap like right behind him. And he at that point just starts running, sprinting.
No.
And according to him, his whole way down that mountain, he could hear these snaps behind him like it was following him. And he realized that it could if it wanted to, he was pretty sure it could catch up to him and grab him.
Oh yeah.
So it was either trying to just scare him off,
Mm-hmm.
or he was signaling to the other creatures where this prey was or was going. And he's just in a full panic now. Just can't get down to his car fast enough. He's hearing the snaps, and it's definitely following him. And so he finally gets to the clearing where his car is, and he just runs. He's not even looking. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me jump back a little bit. So before he gets to his car, he comes out into like this pasture where there's a deer standing there, and the deer looks up at him, and he just freezes. And then the deer looks up behind him, sniffs the air, and bolts.
Oh, no, the deer know. They know.
He said, nope. And Jeff was like, yeah, me too. So he bolts all the way back down to his car. He's not looking behind him, but as soon as like the sounds of the snapping reached where the clearing was, where his car was, they stopped. Mm-hmm. And so in his mind, in these situations where it's just a few seconds, but it feels like an hour, like he's getting his keys to his car, he's trying to get in the door, and he's just picturing this thing closing on him. And he just thinks it's going to snatch me and I'm going to be a goner. But he gets into his car, looks out the window, doesn't see any motion, and just drives off as fast as he can. He goes to the sheriff's station, to his friend's office, the sheriff, and he tells him, like, he's shaking, and he tells him what he just experienced. And his friend, the sheriff, said, yeah, we get that all the time.
No.
People come in here and say pretty much exactly what you said.
No way.
Often. So something is definitely going on.
The same like tree snapping. Oh my God.
Following me, snapping trees.
And he didn't know that.
No.
He'd never heard that story. Oh my God.
Yeah, and he never went back up into that area. Pretty wild.
Heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Yikes.
One thing I was thinking was interesting was that how he's hearing the noise, but he doesn't actually see any trees fall.
Right.
And one thing in Sasquatch stories is like people see trees fall, like the Sasquatch are intimidating you. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if it might be something that the creature that was following him had learned to mimic in some way. Either vocally or with some sort of tools.
Yeah.
And maybe he just has a great time scaring the poop out of hikers.
That is interesting. I mean, it could be that it's further off than he thinks, because I mean, a tree snapping would be really loud.
Sure.
So it could be that it's actually further away.
He did describe it as this, like a gunfire, like a weapon going
off. I was also thinking, I don't know if you've ever heard of lyrebirds. Lyrebirds. Yeah, lyrebirds are really cool in that they can imitate so many sounds and with incredible accuracy. Like you hear these things and they can mimic other animals. They kind of mimic like they can mimic alarms. They make camera sounds. They like a like a camera. It'll do the focus noise, and then because there's a lot of nature photographers, so they've learned the photography noises. They do all kinds of things. You should look it up. So it could be something similar to that.
Yeah. That's interesting. Maybe they're working together. Maybe Bigfoot has a pet lyrebird.
Pet lyrebird. A really loud one.
Let's get this guy.
They have a megaphone to make it loud. That's it. Somebody draw that for me.
Yes.
He has a Sasquatch with a lyrebird, a little megaphone.
That will be the very first Magical Mystery Hour t-shirt.
Yes. So many ideas.
Dari was so on it. Like, as soon as you said lyrebird, she was like, there's birds that are so good at imitating sounds and voices.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well,
we're going to... That's fascinating, though. I'm like, what? And the same thing. The fact that multiple people have come in and said the same story. I wonder if they were all in that same area, because I don't know if you mentioned that, But like, were they all in that same like general area, or is that just something that happens around the big area?
Yeah, he was saying it was that specific area.
Ooh.
People come out of saying that they've had that experience. Wow.
Yikes.
Well, we're going to throw it back to Vietnam, where we started my storytelling this evening. But we're going to go back in time as well to something Amanda talked about, which was the Vietnam War. As I'm not the biggest history buff. I don't know a whole lot about all of those kinds of things, and pretty much everything I know about the Vietnam War I learned in movies. But I have
some are very accurate, some are not.
Visions of soldiers on patrol through the dense woods of Vietnam. Flashbacks to Forrest Gump and Platoon and the hardships that they went through during the horrible weather. But what I didn't know until I started doing all this research was that they were not just fighting the Viet Cong. They were not just doing these patrols afraid that they might suddenly be the victim of an ambush of Viet Cong soldiers. But there was something else going on that I was very surprised at, the amount of material out there, and that I had never heard of it. I'll begin with one story of one specific platoon. There was a patrol of 6 U.S. soldiers in the woods, and their job was to try and find secret Viet Cong bases or headquarters. And so they would leave their camp in the morning and then go explore certain different parts of the map of the jungle to try and find the enemy, locate them. And can you imagine like how intense and how scary that must have been? Just every step you took, you're snapping branches, and you're not sure if the enemy's behind the next tree. So very intense, very hot. Most days were 100 degrees. They're in their uniforms.
And very humid.
Hot and humid. And all day long just being on, just listening and watching and trying to hear everything.
It was a horrifying time.
Yeah, well, the Viet Cong, the Vietnamese soldiers started they developed this strategy where they would wait until as the sun was going down, the American patrols would be heading back to their base and ambush them because they knew they were so tired. And so that was happening. And so this particular group was heading back to their base. The sun was down. It was officially dark. And all of a sudden, gunfire erupted all around them. So they all hit the deck. There were 6 soldiers, and they started firing back. And when this happened, as it was described in one of the accounts I heard, you had to use your gunfire to, 1, try to, obviously defend yourself, but 2, the muzzle flashes would show you where your friends were.
Right.
So you don't obviously hurt any of your
friendly fire.
Right. And so while this is happening, as horrifying as this moment is for them, they're just being fired on from all sides. And one of the soldiers sees something move out of the corner of his eye, and he looks to see if it's a friend or foe. And he notices this hairy creature stand up on 2 feet, scream, and start running toward where the enemy fire was coming from. He described it as a 6-foot-tall, bipedal creature, just muscle, just taut, just muscle covered with matted fur and screaming. He said it looked like an ape, but with all of the human qualities. He said the face looked human. It was just covered in matted hair.
Wow.
And what he could see at that moment was just this amazing creature stand up, scream, and run toward where the enemy fire was coming from. And he was just kind of like, did I see that? And he looked around as much as he could see his friends' faces. They kind of were just wide-eyed too. And all of the American soldiers stopped firing.
Uh-huh.
And then they could hear screams from the Vietnamese soldiers. And they could tell they all started yelling the same word.
Uh-huh.
They didn't know what the word was, but they're firing. They hear screaming, and then they can hear the group of soldiers, enemy soldiers, retreat while firing and screaming.
Oh my God!
Like this, whatever this creature was, saved them.
Right.
So they used that opportunity to get back to camp. They hunker down. They all go to bed. And the next morning, as soon as the sun rises, when they're having breakfast, they asked their supervisor, can we go back to... They tell their supervisor what happens, right. what happened. And he didn't doubt it. They said that it was very strange how much he believed them.
Yeah.
And they asked if they could go back and try and find that area where that occurred and just
right.
kind of see,
like, look for footprints, something.
Yes. And so he says, sure. And they do. And when they get there, they find a dismembered Vietnamese soldier just ripped apart.
No.
Yeah.
What?
And limbs ripped off. And they said that even his face just had a look of horror on it. And so this was the first story I heard of what turns out to be a kind of well-known thing. From soldiers that went to Vietnam, they talked to each other. There was some sort of creature in the woods. It wasn't like, didn't work alone like in the first story, but there were said to be hundreds of them. And many Vietnamese soldiers came back and told their families horror stories of how most of the time they were more afraid of these beasts than they were of finding the enemy.
That's unbelievable.
There are so many stories that I found, and it just blew my mind. I was just like,
I wish that somebody had known what they said, or like remembered at least the sounds, and then later was like, what does this mean? You know?
Well, fast forward to modern day, these creatures are known as Batutut or Ujit. Mm-hmm. The Vietnamese call them the wild man, the jungle people, the mountain man, or the rock apes. And that is what Vietnamese American soldiers took to calling them rock apes, because of a story that occurred in a region of Vietnam they called Hill 868. This happened when there was a company of 30 U.S. soldiers stationed on this hill, and their orders were to wait there for orders of where to move next from their supervisor. And so their supervisor gets a call on the radio, and one of the men says, hey, kind of strange, but there's a few rock apes, or these they look like monkeys, but they walk upright like humans. They're just kind of like walking around the hill, kind of looking at us. And the supervisor says, do not engage. If they fired their weapons, the enemy would immediately know where they were.
Right.
So just let them. I'm sure that they'll move on. So a few minutes later, the supervisor gets a call back, and the men say, yeah, there's like, they have us like surrounded now. There's a lot of them.
No. Oh my God. And
so there were no orangutans. There's a history of orangutans in the jungles of Vietnam, but they've been gone for like 100 years by now. There was another type of monkey that was known to the region, but they were like, the tallest they would get was 2 feet tall. And so the supervisor just kind of figured they're getting surrounded by these, and he says, scare them away, but do not use your weapons. Throw rocks at them.
Right. Because the second you use your weapon, it's going to get aggressive.
Right. So the men are like, all right. So they start throwing rocks at these rock apes.
Okay.
And this is how they got their name. They started picking up the rocks and bigger rocks and throwing them back. And so the supervisor's radio lights up again. They say, okay, they're throwing bigger rocks at us.
Yeah.
Like, can we shoot them now? And the supervisor says, no, absolutely not. If you shoot them, then we're all dead.
Yeah.
If you need to, go hand in hand, use bayonets. So
what?
They do. And minutes later, the supervisor's radio goes off. He's hearing men screaming, apes screaming. They're screaming, we need backup. We need back. There was like a whole Donnybrook going on with bayonets and these rock apes. And the supervisor finally takes them at their word and is like, okay, like, don't fire your weapons. We'll be there as soon as we can. And so the backup comes in, and once they get there, it's too late. There were no American casualties. There were reported several deceased batutut, but there were several American injuries, like to the point where they had to be sent home, like they were out of there. It was a crazy battle, and it became known as the Battle of Monkey Mountain or Monkey Hill, one of the two. And since these soldiers were injured and being sent home from the Vietnam War from a battle with rock apes, the supervisors said, don't tell anyone what this actually was. Say we've gotten like an actual battle, and that's why you're being sent home. You were injured in war. And so everyone that was involved was told to lie about what had happened.
Okay. What?
But this became like a really well-known story. And if you just like Google
I'm
it. Like,
Googling that after the show.
Comes up all over the place. And it's just like, how did I not hear about this? I was listening to another podcast of a gal that reads stories that are just letters that people write in.
Okay.
And her uncle had been in the war and had told her stories about encounters with these apes and how they would throw grenades back at
oh my god, grenades.
It's just one of those rabbit holes that I went down that I never knew existed, and I just never heard of
this. It's fascinating. What?
The batutut in the jungles of Vietnam during the war.
And we're still not clear or exactly sure on what it is. Like,
right.
Are they people? Are they apes? Are they what? Yeah.
The description of them was pretty much like a mini Sasquatch. It was 6 feet tall, but just muscle, bare faces, bare palms and bare bottoms of feet, but otherwise hirsute. And it's just absolutely wild, and it just made me. This is why I wanted to start with the saola tonight, and just like tie it in with Bigfoot and the rock apes or the batutut.
Like, are they some kind of like step in the evolution of man that like somehow kept existing, and we don't know? What? My mind is blown.
Are they still out there? They're still out there, but nobody goes out there unless there's a war or something.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because that area, I guess, is not human inhabited, right?
Right.
Is it still? I
wildlife.
wonder.
Yeah, I imagine so.
I don't know. And do those soldiers, like, do they talk about it now? Or, at any point have any of them come forward and said, yeah, this is what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the accounts that are out there online came from the soldiers.
Came from them. I don't know if they come from them or their family or,
Right.
Like, I want to see one of them tell this story. What? Wow.
Wild.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I don't I want to know so much more.
All right. Well, I promised people this wouldn't turn into another 4-hour show. But I do have one more story, and of course I saved the most fascinating one for me for last.
Okay.
Did I have another Batutu? Oh, I'll just show this artist rendering of a scene that was described to them by a Vietnam War vet. They would just be out on patrol for Viet Cong soldiers and run into groups of these.
I don't know what. Oh my God. I don't know how you. I don't know. I don't even have the words. What?
Right.
I am flabbergasted.
I don't have training for this.
No. They did not teach you about that in boot camp. Were there other... Like, I imagine that this is one platoon, right, from the story. Were there others?
These were two different. So the story of the first story I told you and second story, they were different.
They were different.
Unrelated. Yeah.
Oh. So we have multiple accounts of the same thing.
Yep. Weird. All right. Well, let's keep the war on foreign soil theme here and talk about another wild incident and mysterious creature. This one definitely does involve a government cover-up.
Ooh, we love a good government cover-up.
Don't we? And as I get my music on, there we go. Much more recent than Vietnam, we had soldiers in Afghanistan. And a incident occurred in the year 2002 that was covered up by for many years by NDAs, non-disclosure agreements that were signed by soldiers and members of our very own military. And this is a story that is tragic and mind-blowing. So there was a group of soldiers, Green Berets, in the Army. And if you know, I didn't know, but the Green Berets are the most highly trained unit, very specialized unit in the Army. That it's equated to Navy SEALs, but it's different. They do different.
Right. But still, Navy SEALs are like the top of the top, and so the Green Berets are similar in the Army.
So there's a platoon or a unit of Green Berets who are told one day that there was actually a platoon of soldiers, I think they said about 20 U.S. soldiers, that had just disappeared. They had gone on patrol, and they were told to, it was kind of like Vietnam, they had to patrol a certain region of these mountains that were there and try and locate the missing soldiers. And this area is called Kandahar. And what was very strange was that, of course, every Army unit was trained to radio in the second anything seemed odd. When you're out on patrol, it was called a TIC, or a troops in contact. Okay. It was like documented every time it happened, and sometimes they'd call it in and it would be a false alarm, but nothing was ever not called in. Right. You wanted headquarters to know where you were. Of course, it's very important.
Yeah, somebody has
very
to know.
Important. And in case anything goes wrong or sideways, the strange thing about this missing platoon was that no tick was ever issued, and they just disappeared. So this group of Green Berets is sent out to look for them and sent out to the last known place that they were patrolling. And so they hike through those mountains, and of course it's hot, it's Afghanistan, it's horrible conditions, but they're searching for any sort of clues for this group that just went missing.
Right.
Eventually they find what they described as a goat trail, a very thin windy trail up one of the mountains.
Okay.
And they kind of, I guess there's clues of people being there. So they start hiking up this trail. And as they get part of the way up, they start to find pieces of American equipment.
Oh, no.
Uniforms. Like radio housings, not the full radio, but parts of
what?
Communication equipment. And even some bone fragments.
Dear.
They can't tell if they're human or not at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're on very high alert. They are the most highly trained American Army force out there. And so they're ready to engage if anything. It smells like an ambush to them. And so they're all talking to each other. They're all communicating. They are on high alert.
Okay.
So eventually this trail leads up to a plateau on the mountainside. Like a big stage, they described it as.
Okay.
Where it was kind of flat, and there was a giant cave.
Oh, no. Don't go in.
They took a look in the cave, and right inside the mouth of the cave was like a steep drop-off.
Uh-huh.
And they had your instincts. They were not about to go in.
I'm getting creeped out just looking at this picture.
Yeah. So they kind of radio in that they've been finding these fragments and they found this cave, but what's down there obviously could be enemies.
Right.
There could be an enemy headquarters down there. Maybe the troop that went missing decided to go down and just couldn't make their way back out.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible they found the cave. They were investigating. I mean, the bone fragments along the way are a little,
little sus.
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, there are some logical explanations.
So one of them gets on the radio and says, "Did anybody see that? There's movement in there."
No.
And so everybody trains their focus on the mouth of the cave. And mind you, behind them was like at the end of the stage that I described. It was a steep drop off on the other side of the
Did they have flashlights?
They probably did.
Like spotlight searchlights.
Oh,
Like,
right.
I shouldn't say like flashlight because I mean I even did the little flashlight movement, but like yeah, like, hey, so it's 6 feet in front of me. No, but I'd be like, don't they have like searchlights?
Right.
I don't know.
So they kind of fan out because like they're vulnerable to the back. Like if anything came out, they couldn't retreat backwards.
Right.
And getting down the goat path was going to be really hard if they were all just booking down together. So they kind of take a defensive stance as somebody saw movement in the cave. And then suddenly, before anyone could react, there was one of the soldiers, his name was Dan, was the closest to the cave. A giant humanoid figure standing 11 to 15 feet tall. They say just 1,100 pounds of muscle, 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot, a long red beard, long red hair, wearing animal skins, steps out of the cave and impales Dan on this giant pike, giant lance. And everybody obviously opens fire. They're trained to shoot twice in the chest and once in the head in that order, but they all just unload on the chest of this man, this giant man. And they said one of the shooters is actually on record on YouTube in an interview saying, we were all shooting this thing in the chest for a good 30 seconds, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And it was picking up Dan and kind of just like trying to get him off so he could go at another soldier with it, until somebody came on the radio and said, shoot the head, go for the head. So they all just focused, bullets to the head. And finally this thing went down. They ran over obviously to check on Dan, but he was gone immediately. And they radioed headquarters and told them what had just happened. It's this giant, what became known as the Giant of Kandahar.
Yeah, so I was expecting like the Sasquatch thing again, some man ate beast, but this sounds like just a huge person. When you said red hair, red beard, like my jaw dropped. What?
11 fingers. Yeah, 11 fingers, 11 toes. They said he smelled like corpses.
Wait, 11? So like 5 on one, 6 on
Sorry.
Okay. 6 on each.
12 fingers, 12 toes. My math is really good.
It's late. It's fine.
And so they radio back to headquarters what had just happened. Headquarters sends 2 helicopters. They have orders to wrap this person up in a net.
Okay.
And attach it to a helicopter so they can bring it back to headquarters. They described it as being a very difficult task. He was 1,100 pounds and obviously wounded and just smelled like corpses. And so they medevac Dan, obviously, and bring the rest of the group back. And as soon as they get back to headquarters, the group of soldiers is taken away to be debriefed about what exactly happened up there. And this beast is to be taken somewhere. It's loaded onto a C-130, which is a large plane that usually carries lots of cargo.
Okay.
And the pilot of the plane has gone on record and talked about this day, and he doesn't say where he was ordered to take this body, but that he confirmed everything that the soldiers had said in the account, that it was 1,100 pounds, 11 to 15 feet tall, long red hair, 12-digit hands and feet, and like we were talking about earlier, you don't make this stuff up because you're trying to be cool.
No.
Like, it's wild. So they load up the body and they take it somewhere that the government wants it to be.
Yeah.
All the soldiers who are involved are debriefed, and they all are told to write out a statement, everything you remember, everything that happened, and they do. And when it's turned into their supervisors tell them, "I'm sorry, we can't accept this.
What?
You're going to have to write a version of the event that isn't this." So imagine the morale in that group. You've just lost one of your members, and your supervisors are telling you you're not allowed to turn in this report because it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Write something more believable, please.
Each soldier is basically forced to write a fake account of what happened, and then forced by the Army to sign non-disclosure agreements to never talk about this to anyone ever again. Which, people talk. And so other soldiers who fought in that war, upon arriving to Afghanistan, people talked about it. You heard the stories, the troop that completely went missing, and then, Dan, of course, and this giant beast in the caves. And so one of the soldiers that I was listening to an interview said that cave training completely changed after that. Yeah. The Army stopped training to do the 2 in the chest, 1 in the head thing, and it was just aim up. When you go into a cave, aim up. And nobody really understood why, but they kind of had an idea that the story that they've been hearing was true. And finally, in 2016, so 14 years after it happened, one of the soldiers, one of the shooters, decided, this is messed up. I've been keeping this secret for too long. I want to honor the memory of my friend, and the American people need to know, like, this happened, and the government has this body and didn't ever say anything about it,
and nobody knows where it is.
So he started doing interviews, and he started talking about it, and he's not the only one. Others have come out and corroborated, like I mentioned, the pilot, and it's wild. It's just another thing that I learned while doing research for this show that is kind of out there, and you can find you can Google it and go down that rabbit hole, and it's not like there's no information. There's a lot out there.
Well, and it's like, if it was one guy, you'd be like, yeah, maybe he made this up. But when they corroborate it, like, why would they do that? It's the same thing, especially to me, military, because they're so, like, loyal, right? And their heart is in it. It's not a career that you're just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a soldier. It's everything. And so you would not just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna lie about it. That's not what would happen. Absolutely.
And I'm somebody who just believes in morale, like keeping morale up, like especially in any sort of organization, in any business, in the workplace. But if you're in a war with other people, you need to be able to trust each other and know that you've got each other's backs, and to be told by supervisors, like, you can't turn this in.
That's unbelievable.
You can never talk about this again. I can't imagine the amount of betrayal like that felt.
Yeah.
To all of those soldiers who witnessed it.
I mean, I feel like they could have at least, if that was real and they said that, it's like you could at least say something like, okay, we're going to keep this on record, classified here, but because of what this might do to the public, we're going to use this statement. Like, at least that way you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm still, like, protecting other people by not, like, I'm still protecting the citizens by doing this. Like, how heartbreaking to be like, this happened, and just be told, nope, it didn't.
Yeah. And the question the follow-up questions come up, like, was this just dad? Was this older brother? Who else is out there?
Yeah.
And
are there females? Is there family?
Right. Is there a village?
Yeah.
People, after hearing all these stories, Bible experts started pointing at biblical verses about giants in that area of the world.
Oh, really? It's like the same area?
Yeah, I think it's the Middle East.
Yeah.
In those mountains. And I should have put it in my notes, but if I Wikipedia, it's Nephilis, I think it's called. But there's, like, they pull up several different Bible verses that could be referring to giants in the mountains in the desert, and maybe this was just a species from biblical times that is still out there, still surviving, has found ways.
What also really fascinates me is the red hair and pale skin, because it's like, you're in the Middle East. That's not how you would have evolved. Like, where did that come from? Like, that really got me. I was like, wait a minute. Like, this redheaded beast, giant.
Right.
That lives in Afghanistan. How did that happen?
That is a mystery. That is the mystery of the giant of Kandahar.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, Kandahar. So, gave you a few Google rabbit holes to go down with the rest of your evening. But we have more.
Wait, let's hear it for these stories.
Oh.
There we go. I got some applause.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, those were really fascinating. What?
Thanks. We should tell more someday.
I know. I was just laughing. I was thinking to myself, like, I swear to goodness, this podcast show, well, really the YouTube show, but this show in general, I swear I'm going to have, like, wrinkles times 10 after this. I spend most of my time like this. Like, what?
Right? My face is just going to be frozen and...
Yeah. Exactly. Like,
Can I get some
excuse
eggs?
me?
Are you okay, sir?
Yeah,
Did
this is just
Santa
how I
Fe
look now.
scramble?
For the rest of our lives. You know, when they used to have that, don't make that face because it's gonna get stuck that way.
Yep.
Like,
Oh, they've got Vaudacity.
oh yeah.
Vaudacity, frozen face.
Oh,
Oh.
frozen.
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 Well, we started to talk about duets to do.
Yes.
And the theme of mysterious.
I won't lie, guys. I was like, I don't know what song we're gonna do. I was like, mountain. I literally was like, mountains? Monsters live in mountains? Ain't no mountain high enough? I don't know what to do. I am stumped.
Early on, I was thinking about doing mermaids as my topic. And,
Yeah.
And Amanda was stoked.
I was.
She's like, here comes my
Here
my
comes
little
my
mermaid.
Ariel. Someday.
And then I pivoted.
Pivot.
But so yeah, we were throwing ideas around, and I just thought, what about Into the Unknown? And that was before I knew that you had Frozen 2 in your story.
Or that we talk about our faces being frozen. I know Paul sent a picture of the chords to me. He's like, well, what about this one? I was like, sold.
Yeah, immediately. Sold.
Just done.
But before we jump into that, shall we tell everyone what's going on next on Vaudacity?
Yes, we just have a couple. But on Sunday the 1st at 7:30, we are going to be reading draft 2 of The Dreamer. How exciting is that? So you can catch Jamie, Paul, Dan, Stephanie, Hunter, Dylan, Darren, myself, and Craig Jackman, also narrated by Frank Romeo. So that's going to be amazing. Catch that.
I'm super excited about that, and I'm so glad you'll be involved as well.
So excited.
And this is a story that has been on my mind for a decade or so. We read the first draft of it 6 years ago at Polly's Picnic 6, and I'm excited to get the second draft out there and read by people and the story told once again. And I can't wait to see where it goes. It's all about serendipity and kind of real life magic, just like this show is.
Yeah, can't wait. Then next week, we're going to have a Gaming with Dari, episode 12. So it'll be on the 3rd at 8 o'clock. Dari's here in the chat if you would like to talk about your show. Dari wants to know who's joining her show. We got called out right there.
On the spot.
I know. It'll probably be fine, as far as I know. I'm going back to work that day, so I might be kind of sleepy, but...
I was going to say the same thing. It's my first day back to work, so I don't know where my head will be at, but if I can get in there, yeah, let's play some Jackbox or something.
Ooh, and yeah, Jackbox says maybe if I get some people, then maybe some improv games. That'll be fun, too. So already shaping up to be a fun night.
Murder trivia.
Always fun. Love murder trivia.
Giant trivia.
Sasquatch trivia.
Yes, I'm in.
And then, of course, next week, I'll also have my show. I'm trying to think of a theme, so if you want. I keep thinking, what was I doing? Oh, yeah. You know what I was thinking about doing? This is a new year, and I always love doing that song, I'm Feeling Good. I'm feeling good. So I think maybe it'll be feel-good songs, right? Like,
can't get enough of those.
I know. So let's do it. That's my theme. Start sending stuff in. Look, Dari says self-love. Look at that. Perfect. Feeling good. Self-love. I love it.
Also, if you missed my Facebook post earlier today, I know Amanda didn't post one because she's just a bad friend, but
I'm not.
the 5th episode of our audio podcast dropped today. So be sure to give that a listen if you so choose.
I started listening to it today.
Support us in that way.
I lived it, but I have to listen to it too.
Sure.
It's so good. I really like it. I love that whole episode, both of our stories. I can't wait to hear yours too. It's like, that's good. All the episodes have been really good so far, you guys. I'm like so proud of this show right now. Like,
I think I could listen to like your episode on Emanuela Orlandi like at least 10 more times and still not get everything.
Yep, it's so detailed. Like, it's a lot.
And you're so detailed in presenting it.
Oh yeah, that was one I was like, I really want to do this one justice, and it's so complicated. You just have to, go for it. But yeah, it's a really good story.
Speaking of doing things justice, you do this one, this song. A heck of a lot of justice, and it's a beast of a song.
It is.
You really bring it, and
thanks.
you do it well.
Thank you.
Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're closing out this episode of the Magical Mystery Hour, mythical, mystical, mysterious creatures, with a duet of Into the Unknown.
All right. I can hear you, but I won't. Some look for trouble while others don't. There's 1,000 reasons I should go about my day and ignore your whispers, which I wish would go away. You're not a voice, you're just a ringing in my ears. And if I heard you, which I don't, I'm spoken for, I fear. Everyone I've ever loved is here within these walls. I'm sorry, secret siren, but I'm blocking out your calls. I've had my adventure, I don't need something new. I'm afraid of what I'm risking if I follow you into the unknown. Into the unknown. Into the unknown. What do you want? 'Cause you've been keeping me awake. Are you here to distract me so I make a big mistake? Or are you someone out there who's a little bit like me, who knows deep down I'm not where I'm meant to be? Every day's a little harder as I feel my powers grow. Don't you know there's a part of me that longs to go into the unknown?
Amanda Benjamin, ladies and gentlemen.
And Paul Carganilla. So good.
That's fun.
Yes. Oh, thanks. I love that. Love seeing those power songs. So good.
You do it so well.
Oh, thanks. Also, we don't usually talk about the hero, but I did get a super chat today from Emily Thatcher. Thank you.
And I did too. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Said, thanks for sharing those stories. Those are super fascinating. Awesome job storytelling and performing. Well done. Thank you, Emily,
Thank you.
for sponsoring. You've been the sponsor of like the first 5 episodes of the audio podcast.
Amazing.
So,
thank you. And of course, if you would like to sponsor a podcast episode or 2 or 5 like Emily, just let us know. You can always send a Venmo to one of these. I can't reach yours, but mine's right below me. And Paul's is right over there. And just leave a little note saying that you want to sponsor an episode, and we with a message that we'll read at the beginning of the podcast.
Right. Yes, and it's just for just $10 an episode. You can sponsor, and we will read your message on the air, whether you want to plug something for your business or you just want to leave a positive message or have any sort of candygram read out loud on an audio podcast. Just $10 an episode. Just it keeps our audio podcasts going.
Yeah. Just so you know, that is what you're doing, because our fee is to put the podcast up. So if you would like to sponsor an episode, your money goes directly to keeping them online.
It's literally what it does. You pay for the space for this episode to be in the internets and for everyone to enjoy.
Thank you so much, Emily Thatcher.
Yes, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Always. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for the 4th episode of the Magical Mystery Hour.
Our next episode will feature more mysteries.
If you enjoyed tonight's stories and don't want to miss out on the next, please be sure to like the YouTube live stream and subscribe to the Vaudacity Network so you don't miss any future stories, as well as great music and comedy.
And if you loved it on the audio podcast, please be sure you are subscribed on that platform as well. And please leave the show a positive review and help more people who like this kind of show find our Magical Mystery Hour.
Until the next mystery.
Good night.
Good night. And we wish you magic.